The story. The Manhattan Mirage. He told his wife he didn't want to see her anymore. 3 years later, she came back with a little girl who had his eyes. That night, New York City hummed, wrapped in the usual chaos of taxi horns, brilliant lights, and the constant rush of people chasing something, success, escape, or simply the next subway train. Inside a sleek, cold glass tower in Midtown, Ethan Sawyer stood by the window of his office, gazing out at a skyline that no longer inspired him. At 30, he was the CEO of a major investment firm, a self-made millionaire with power and presence to match. Ethan was the man others deferred to. Dark brown hair, eyes like polished ice, an apartment in the clouds, and a reputation for being completely untouchable. Yet, as he loosened his tie and checked his watch, the silence of his life was beginning to scream. When he finally got home that night, later than usual, due to an emergency investor call, he noticed the difference before he even opened the door. The loft lights were dim, but not in the usual cozy way. The air felt strange, quieter than it should be. The hallway was perfectly clean. Olivia's shoes were not there. The scent of her perfume, always faint and floral, was gone. He walked in and froze. Olivia stood near the entrance, a single bag by her side, her coat already on. She looked calm, almost rehearsed, as if she'd been practicing this moment in her mind for months. Her face held no shame. It was simply done. That was the part that hurt him the most. Not the bag, not the coat, but that expression. The kind of silent farewell that doesn't need shouting to cut deep. He dropped his keys and straightened his shoulders. "What is this?" "I'm leaving," she said, her voice soft but clear. Tonight he didn't move. For how long? "I don't know," she sighed, shrugging her shoulders as if she was simply managing another problem. One more detail in a life full of them. "You're being dramatic, Olivia. This isn't how we fix things." She gave a small, almost sad smile. "We don't fix anything, Ethan. You work, you disappear, you talk to everyone but me. I've been alone in this marriage for years." He looked at her, his jaw tight, his tone sharp. "I gave you everything. This home, this life." "No," she interrupted. "You gave me a role, something pretty for the public, someone to stand next to you at galas. You gave me silence. You gave me space. Too much." He turned away, trying to suppress the flicker of loss creeping under his skin. He hated it. The emotion, the rawness, the loss of control. "Then go," he muttered, his voice low. "If you need to leave, then leave. I don't care. I don't want to see you again." Her eyes flashed just for a second. Maybe with sorrow, maybe with something else. But she didn't cry. She didn't fight. She simply picked up her suitcase and walked towards the elevator. She didn't tell him she was pregnant. She didn't tell him she'd spent the last few weeks terrified, waiting for a reason to stay. He hadn't given her one. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Ethan stood alone in the hall, staring at the empty space. The silence settled again, this time heavier, colder. He walked through the apartment, back to the kitchen, the living room, the bed. Everything was still there. Furniture, art, clean sheets. But now it was all empty, like a museum of a life someone had already left behind. He poured a drink. He sat on the edge of the bed and stared into the darkness. He didn't call her. He didn't follow. And not once did he wonder what she might have carried with her when she left. 3 years later, the return. 3 years passed in a blur of meetings, mergers, flights, and boardrooms. Ethan Sawyer's life, from the outside, only grew more impressive. His firm was now one of the most influential in the country. He was on the cover of several financial magazines and invited to speak at global economic summits. People called him ruthless, sharp, unbreakable. He became exactly what he'd always chased, but deep down, everything felt numb. The nights were quiet. The mornings were mechanical. His home, though still flawless, felt like a model apartment. Perfect on the surface, but untouched by real life. He rarely thought of Olivia, or at least, that's what he told himself. Her name was a ghost he refused to speak aloud. It was a rainy spring afternoon when the unexpected happened. Ethan came home from work early for once, something he almost never did. The elevator doors to the penthouse opened, and he stepped into the foyer, moving through emails on his phone. He barely registered the woman standing near the security desk until her voice, soft and hesitant, broke the silence. "Ethan!" He looked up, and his breath hitched. Olivia was there, rain-dampened, her hair a little longer now, her features thinner, but still painfully familiar. And next to her, there was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 2 or 3. The girl held Olivia's hand tightly, her blue eyes large, curious, and incredibly familiar. She had dark brown hair, slightly tousled by the wind, and the same penetrating gaze Ethan saw in the mirror every day. He looked at the girl, then at Olivia, and back at the girl. "What is this?" he asked slowly, his voice low and guarded. Olivia knelt briefly to adjust the girl's coat, then straightened and met his gaze. "This is Chloe," she said. "She's your daughter." He blinked. "What kind of game is this?" "It's not a game," Olivia said, her voice calm and steady. "I was pregnant when I left. I want a test," he said. "A DNA test. I want proof." Olivia didn't flinch. "Fine. Do whatever you need to. I didn't come here to convince you. I came because she deserves the truth. And if the man you are now can't handle that, we'll leave." She turned, gently guiding Chloe back toward the elevator. Chloe looked back one last time, her blue eyes fixed on his, and then they were gone. Ethan stood frozen in the foyer. The past had walked straight into the present, and it had a name, a face, and the eyes of a daughter he never knew he had. The bridge. A cautious maybe. The DNA test confirmed the truth. Chloe was his daughter. The first feeling wasn't joy, but a crippling sense of failure for the years he'd missed. Ethan and Olivia agreed to meet at a small cafe on the Upper West Side. Olivia sat nearby, watching. When Chloe sat across from him, she was cautious. "You're the man from the tall building," she said. "My name is Ethan." "That's not a daddy name," she observed. He smiled faintly. "I'm still learning." They talked for 30 minutes. Chloe spoke about books, her favorite cartoons, and frogs. Ethan listened to every word as if it were gold. When they got up to leave, Chloe looked up at him and asked, "Are you coming back?" "I want you to," he answered honestly. "Do you want me to?" She shrugged. Maybe. Ethan could work with that. The courtroom. The right to stay. The following months were dedicated to visits, library trips, and walks in Central Park. Ethan was patient. He read parenting books and canceled crucial meetings. He was building something real. Then, Olivia called. She had accepted a new job in Boston and would be moving with Chloe at the end of the month. Ethan refused to let her leave. He filed a formal petition for shared custody with a specific objection to the relocation. He didn't want to fight. He wanted to stay. In the family court, he presented evidence of his commitment. Olivia spoke with grace, admitting that Ethan had become a good father, but arguing that the move was necessary for their stability. The judge called Chloe in. When asked where she wanted to live, she paused and whispered, "Can I just stay with both?" The ruling was a compromise. Olivia could take the job in Boston, but Ethan was granted equal shared custody with scheduled flights and mandatory co-parenting. The judge recognized that Ethan had earned the right to stay in his daughter's life. After the hearing, outside the courtroom, Ethan and Olivia stood together, tired, but united by their daughter. Epilogue. Home in Boston. The statement, "I already know where it goes, home," set the tone for their future. Ethan and Olivia decided to make Boston their base. Ethan established a strong presence at his satellite office and prioritized his daughter. They found a beautiful brownstone apartment in a quiet, historic neighborhood. The transition was messy, filled with arguments over chores and bedtime, but it was real. Ethan learned to talk about his stress, and Olivia learned to trust him with the daily burdens. They moved past the ghosts of their marriage and built a new foundation based on shared parenthood and respect. 6 months after moving in, on a rainy Saturday afternoon, they were in the kitchen. "We almost didn't make it here," Ethan said. "We're not perfect now, Ethan," Olivia replied, leaning against the counter. "We're just real." He smiled as he glanced around the kitchen, filled with Chloe's artwork and their blended belongings. "I love this mess." She walked over to him, resting a hand on his chest. "I love our mess too." On the morning of Chloe's 6th birthday, the three of them were in their Boston apartment, ready for her party. As the day ended, after all the guests had gone, Chloe sat on Ethan's lap. Olivia looked at Ethan, her face thoughtful. "You know, we could start slow, without rushing it. But maybe see where this goes." Ethan didn't hesitate this time. He took her hand completely. "I already know where it goes," he said in a low voice. "Home." The night was quiet, but alive. A family remade, not from who they used to be, but from who they had become. Stronger, braver, together. Chapter 4. Rebuilding Trust. The word home that Ethan had spoken was not an endpoint, but a vow. Living together in the Boston brownstone was a complex experience, where the convenience of having each other outweighed the lingering strains. Chloe was thriving, now having both her mom and dad for school drop-offs and bedtime stories. But for Ethan and Olivia, being parents was one thing. Becoming husband and wife again was an entirely different challenge. The strained evenings. They had established a stable routine. Evenings revolved around Chloe. Dinner, always involving something without greens, homework, and stories about frogs or rockets. Once Chloe was asleep, the apartment settled into a strained, polite silence, colder than Ethan's old empty silence. Ethan would work on his laptop at the dining table, and Olivia would read on the sofa. The physical proximity only highlighted the remaining emotional distance. One night, Olivia closed her book. She looked at Ethan, who was staring intensely at his screen. "We need to talk," she said gently. Ethan closed his laptop, feeling a familiar tightness in his chest. He was bracing himself for a logistical argument about finances or Chloe's schedule. "About what?" he asked. "About us," Olivia said. "We're a fantastic team for Chloe, but we're living like roommates who co-own a child. I won't live in another silent marriage, Ethan. I'd rather be alone in Boston." She wasn't angry, just weary. That frankness made it impossible for Ethan to retreat. "I know," he admitted. "I don't know where to start. I used to think money and power were enough. When you left, it took me 3 years to understand the only thing that matters is presence. Now I'm here, but I don't know how to make you believe I'm going to stay." "Trust isn't bought by flying back and forth or by paying the rent," Olivia said, meeting his gaze. "It's built from small things, from you actually saying what you're thinking, instead of letting it freeze inside." The unscheduled date. A few days later, Ethan did something he hadn't done in years. He made a plan. Not a business strategy, but an evening out. He arranged for a trusted sitter to come over and booked a table at a small, cozy restaurant in the Beacon Hill area. When Olivia saw him standing at the door in his coat, waiting, she was surprised. "Where are we going?" "On a date," Ethan answered simply. "Ethan, we don't date," she said with a small laugh. "We live together." "Exactly," he said. "We need to date, so we remember we are Ethan and Olivia, not just Chloe's parents." Throughout dinner, Ethan didn't mention work or Chloe once. Instead, he asked about her new job. The books she was reading, and the dreams she'd set aside when she married him. For the first time in years, he saw the spark and passion back in her eyes. The woman who had found herself again in Boston. When they got back home, they stood in the living room. "Thank you," Olivia said. "That was a wonderful evening." Ethan stepped closer to her, not with the confidence of a CEO, but with the hesitancy of a man learning how to love again. He reached out and touched her hand. "You told me you couldn't beg for a place in a life I'd excluded you from," Ethan said, his voice low and sincere. "I am now begging for a place in your life. Will you give me a chance?" Olivia didn't answer with words. She saw the truth in his eyes, the deep regret, and an undeniable yearning. She reached up and touched his face, the place that had once been icy cold. "I didn't tell you," Olivia whispered, "that when I walked out of that New York apartment that night, I hoped you would chase me. I hoped for one reason to turn back. You didn't. I was a frozen idiot that night," Ethan confessed. "I will spend the rest of my life fixing that. Starting now." He pulled her close and kissed her. A kiss that wasn't hurried or detached. It held the pain of 3 years apart, the healing of their shared work, and an unspoken promise. He was never going to let her go again. Rebuilding trust wasn't a single moment, but a process. But that night, in their cozy Boston brownstone, Ethan and Olivia crossed the bridge of co-parenting to find the way back to each other. "Tu vet voi, tôi rất vui vì bạn thích câu chuyện này. Tôi sẽ viết tiếp một chương, tập trung vào sự ổn định của họ và một cột mốc quan trọng trong mối quan hệ hàn gắn của Ethan và Olivia." Chapter 5. The Vow in the Brownstone. The fragile bridge of a renewed romance soon solidified into a sturdy foundation. Ethan and Olivia didn't need the dramatic flair of their past. They found joy in the mundane and consistent. Ethan no longer saw his trips to New York as an escape, but as time away from his home in Boston, a place he genuinely missed. He learned Olivia's routine, the way she needed coffee before speaking in the morning, her habit of leaving her reading glasses on the windowsill, and her quiet determination when facing a work challenge. Olivia, in turn, saw the profound change in him. The ice in his eyes had melted, replaced by a warm, if sometimes nervous, presence. He was fully in the moment, whether he was helping Chloe build a towering Lego castle or listening patiently to Olivia's professional frustrations. Their life became a rhythm. Ethan handling the morning school drop-off, Olivia managing the dinner and bedtime routine, and weekends dedicated entirely to Chloe. Visits to the Museum of Science, long walks along the Charles River, and of course visits to the frog exhibit at the aquarium. The quiet anniversary, mild evening in early autumn, about a year after they had officially moved back in together, Ethan came home from a rare late meeting. The apartment was quiet. He found Olivia in the living room, sitting on the rug, not reading, but looking through a small, dusty leather box. "What's all this?" he asked, sitting down beside her. "Just sorting through old things," Olivia murmured. She held up a small, faded photograph. It was their wedding photo. Years ago, back when they were glossy, tense, and clearly unprepared for what marriage truly demanded. "We were fools," Ethan said quietly, gently taking the photo. "We were," Olivia agreed. "But we loved each other. We just didn't know how to be with each other." She pulled out a simple platinum wedding band. It was Ethan's. He hadn't worn it since the day she left, having placed it in his desk drawer as a silent acknowledgement of their failure. "I found this when I was packing your old desk," she said, holding it out. "I almost threw it away." Ethan looked at the ring, then at Olivia. He remembered the coldness with which he had once told her he didn't want to see her again. He remembered the desperate emptiness that followed. "Do you know why I didn't send you the letter I wrote after you left?" Ethan asked, referencing the apology she'd found while moving. "Because you were afraid I wouldn't believe it?" "Partly," he said. "But mostly because I realized that letter was about me It was about my guilt. Not about you and what you needed. You didn't need words then. You needed action. He took the ring, turning it over in his palm. This ring doesn't mean anything anymore. That marriage is over. It ended when you walked out the door and I didn't chase you. Olivia looked away, a flicker of pain crossing her face. Ethan reached out and gently took her hand, turning her attention back to him. But this, he continued, looking around their lived-in, cozy living room, this life we've built, this messy, real, challenging thing we do every day for Chloe and for each other, that is real. That is what I want. He didn't ask her to marry him again. He didn't propose with a diamond or a grand speech. Instead, he took the old platinum band, placed it on her ring finger, and gently squeezed her hand. "I am sorry I was not the man you needed then," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I am here now. I vow to keep showing up, to keep learning, to keep choosing you, every single day." Olivia's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head, a smile spreading across her face. "You don't need a ring for that, Ethan." "I know," he replied, sliding his own matching band, which she had also found, onto his finger. "But this is a good reminder of where we started and how far we've come. We don't get a do-over, Olivia. We just get a beginning." She leaned in and kissed him, a kiss that tasted like acceptance and quiet strength. The past was no longer a ghost. It was a memory that simply showed them the way to the present. A new chapter later that night, as they lay in bed, the light from a passing car swept across the ceiling. "What do you think Chloe would say if she knew about the rings?" Olivia whispered. Ethan wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "She'd probably ask if the rings were made of the same shiny metal as a space rocket," he joked. Then he grew serious. "She'd be happy, Olivia. She only ever wanted us to stay. She taught us how." "She did," Olivia agreed. "She showed us that love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present." With a family rebuilt on patience, honesty, and shared effort, Ethan knew that even the most formidable wall of ice could melt. He finally had everything he truly needed, and it wasn't measured in his firm's stock price, but in the warmth of the woman in his arms, and the knowledge that this time he had fought to stay home. Tu yet vui. Tôi rất vui vì bạn vẫn muốn tiếp tục câu chuyện về Ethan, Olivia và Chloe. Chúng ta hãy cùng nhìn vào tương lai của họ, nơi sự nghiệp và gia đình của Ethan cuối cùng đã dung hòa, và Chloe đã lớn hơn một chút. Chapter 6. The New Skyline. Life in Boston settled into a comfortable, durable routine. Ethan Sawyer, once the quintessential New York CEO, found that his focus had fundamentally shifted. He still ran his firm, but he did so differently. He implemented new policies, flexible work schedules, mandatory time off. Policies rooted in the hard lesson he'd learned about the true cost of presence. He'd traded his reputation for being ruthless for a new one, a leader who valued balance. By the time Chloe turned 8, their life had expanded. Ethan and Olivia had celebrated their quiet, personal anniversary of getting back together by taking a trip, just the two of them, to a quiet beach town. A necessary step to nurture the relationship that was the root of their rebuilt family. They were building a second chapter, one marked by mutual respect, shared ambition, and an easy, genuine affection that had been missing in their first marriage. The Frog Project. Chloe, now in 3rd grade, was obsessed with two things: space and, of course, frogs. Her class was assigned a major science project, a habitat diorama. One Saturday morning, the dining room table of the brownstone became a sprawling construction zone of moss, blue paint, and tiny plastic frogs. Ethan, dressed in a comfortable old t-shirt, was meticulously gluing river stones to the base while Chloe directed him. "No, Dad, the tree frog goes on the branch. The bullfrog needs to be near the big water feature," Chloe instructed with authority. "Got it, Captain," Ethan replied, genuinely enjoying the work. It struck him how much easier this was than managing a hostile takeover bid. This was real problem solving, and the result was infinitely more rewarding. Olivia watched from the doorway, leaning against the frame with a coffee mug in her hands. She smiled. The sight of Ethan, the former untouchable finance titan, covered in glitter and talking about amphibians, still bringing her a quiet joy. "You look happy," she commented softly. Ethan looked up, meeting her eyes. "I am. I never knew how to just be messy before. You know, back then I thought success meant having everything look perfect. Now you know success means having things look real," Olivia finished for him. "Exactly," he said. He paused his work, reaching for her hand and pulling her closer. "I'm glad you kept the glue and the scissors in your life when you left me. It turned out I needed them more than I needed my corporate jets." The New York decision later that week, Ethan received an urgent call. His firm's original New York headquarters was undergoing a major leadership shift. The board wanted him back, full-time, at the helm in Manhattan. It was the kind of power move he had always dreamed of, an undeniable leap in influence. He sat with Olivia that night, the papers spread out on the table, not as a decision he had made, but as a problem they needed to solve together. "It's everything I chased before," Ethan admitted, tracing the firm's logo on the document. "The control, the influence. They want me to lead the sector." "What do you want, Ethan?" Olivia asked, not with fear, but with genuine curiosity. "We're happy here. Chloe is stable. She has the best frog habitat designer in the country." Ethan looked at her, then at the living room, where Chloe's backpack lay tossed by the sofa. He realized the question wasn't about the job's title, but about its location. Moving back to New York would mean ripping Chloe out of her school and disrupting the stability they had fought so hard for. It would risk the very foundation of trust they had rebuilt. "I used to believe I couldn't run the firm without physically being in that tower," Ethan said. "Now I know I can't be a father or your partner if I'm not here. I won't do that to us again." He picked up his phone and composed a short, professional email, declining the full-time move, but proposing a radical new structure. He would lead from Boston, utilizing technology and delegating more authority in New York. His life, he explained to the board, was no longer defined by a single city. Olivia read the email over his shoulder before he pressed send. She didn't say anything, but she leaned down and kissed the back of his head, a silent, powerful affirmation, a promise kept. A few weeks later, Ethan and Chloe were at the local park. Chloe was trying to climb a rope ladder, struggling near the top. "I can't reach it, Dad," she called down, frustration clear in her voice. "You're almost there, Chloe. Look at the next step. Don't look at the ground," Ethan encouraged, keeping a hand nearby, ready to catch her. Chloe managed to pull herself up and reached the small platform. She looked down at him, her eyes bright blue and triumphant. "I did it," she beamed. "You sure did," he said, giving her a huge smile. As he watched her slide down and run off to the sandbox, a profound sense of peace washed over him. He realized that this was his new, true success, not the climb to the top of a glass tower, but simply being there to watch his daughter reach the top of a ladder. He had promised Olivia he would spend the rest of his life fixing his mistake. By choosing the sandbox over the boardroom, by choosing presence over power, he wasn't just fixing the past. He was building a powerful, undeniable future for his family. Tu yet voi. Chúng ta hãy cùng nhìn vào một cột mốc quan trọng trong tương lai của gia đình Ethan, Olivia và Chloe. Một cột mốc khẳng định rằng họ không chỉ hàn gắn mà còn phát triển. Chapter 7. A new addition to the brownstone. 2 years after Ethan made the conscious choice to prioritize Boston over Manhattan, their life had blossomed into deep, unquestioning stability. Ethan's firm, surprisingly, thrived under his new remote leadership structure, proving that presence at home didn't mean absence from success. The brownstone was their sanctuary, filled with the comfortable chaos of a happy family, a blend of Ethan's organized efficiency and Olivia's artistic flair. Chloe, now 10, was their hilarious, insightful center. She was an expert on frog species, a budding astronomer, and a master negotiator when it came to bedtime. She had seamlessly adjusted to having both parents, her blue eyes shining with the security she had always craved. She no longer had to choose between cities or parents. She just had a family. A different kind of news. It was a cold evening in late November. Ethan was in the kitchen, carefully teaching Chloe how to make his slightly burnt but beloved pancake recipe for Sunday breakfast practice. Olivia walked in, her arms crossed, watching them with a peculiar, thoughtful smile. "All right, Chloe," Ethan announced. "Your mom has that look. She wants to taste test a pancake." Olivia shook her head, walking over to the stove and taking Ethan's hand, stopping his stirring. "I have something else to tell you too," she said, her voice soft but filled with excitement. Ethan immediately looked at her with concern. "Is everything okay? Is it the firm?" Olivia laughed gently. "Everything is more than okay, honey. It's personal." She looked down at Chloe, who had stopped mixing batter and was watching her mother with wide, curious eyes. "Chloe," Olivia began, kneeling down to meet her daughter's eye level. "You know how much we love our little house and how much fun we have. Of being a family of 3? Chloe nodded seriously. "Yes, we have the best family." "Well," Olivia continued, reaching out to gently place a hand on her own abdomen, "our little brownstone is going to get a little louder next year. You are going to be a big sister." The room went silent. Ethan stood frozen, the whisk slipping from his hand and clattering onto the counter. He stared at Olivia, his eyes wide with surprise, then slowly moved to the floor, wrapping his arms around both of them. Chloe, after a moment of stunned silence, let out a squeal of pure joy. "A baby brother or sister? I can teach them about frogs. Can we name them Tadpole?" As Chloe launched into an excited monologue about the educational opportunities for the new sibling, Ethan pulled Olivia close, kissing her forehead. His eyes were wet, filled with a profound emotion that transcended guilt or regret. It was pure, undeniable joy and gratitude. "We're having a baby," he whispered, a smile splitting his face. "This is incredible." "I know," Olivia said, her hands resting on his face. "It's a completely new beginning, built on a foundation that's finally strong." The full picture. 9 months later, the Boston brownstone welcomed Theo Sawyer. He was born with a thick head of dark hair and, much to everyone's delight, Ethan's dark eyes. Ethan, the man who once fled from emotional honesty, was now a remarkably calm and dedicated father of a newborn. He took parental leave, changed diapers with surprising efficiency, and spent his nights pacing the living room with Theo nestled against his chest. He savored every moment, acutely aware that he had nearly missed this entire chapter of life once before. Chloe took her role as big sister seriously, insisting on reading The Tale of Peter Rabbit to Theo every night, even if he was asleep. The house was now filled with a louder, happier kind of chaos, a symphony of baby coos, third-grade homework arguments, and the occasional necessary argument between the parents over who was more tired. One quiet afternoon, Olivia found Ethan in the nursery, just standing over Theo's crib, watching the baby sleep. "He looks so much like you," Olivia said softly, joining him. "He does," Ethan agreed, gently touching Theo's tiny hand. "But he's going to be better than me. He's going to have a father who knows what really matters from day one." He turned to Olivia, his gaze steady and warm. "Thank you for not giving up on the man I could be. Thank you for giving me a chance to be present for all of it." Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder. We didn't just rebuild our family, Ethan. We built a better one. And it started with a frog-loving little girl who taught us both how to stay. The past was no longer a shadow hanging over them, but a distant lesson. The New York high-rise was a memory. The Boston brownstone, filled with the warmth of their 2 children and the quiet love of 2 people who had found their way back, was their undeniable future. Tu yet voi, tôi rất vui vì bạn muốn biết thêm về tương lai của gia đình này. Chúng ta hãy cùng nhìn vào một cột mốc quan trọng tiếp theo. Vấn đề địa điểm và sự phát triển của Chloe. Chapter 8. The anchor holds life with Theo quickly accelerated the timeline of stability for Ethan and Olivia. The birth of their son cemented the fact that their roots were firmly in Boston. Ethan officially stepped down from the full-time CEO role in New York, transitioning to a highly profitable, less time-consuming role as the firm's executive chairman, allowing him to work primarily from his home office in the brownstone. The move wasn't just about reducing stress. It was a profound statement. He chose his family's geography over corporate power. The teenage test. By the time Chloe was 13, she was a true Bostonian teenager. Sharp, deeply witty, and possessing an encyclopedic knowledge of indie music that left Ethan baffled. Her blue eyes, so much like her father's, still held that intense curiosity, but now mixed with typical teenage angst. The real test of their rebuilt family structure came during a summer break when Chloe was invited to an exclusive, month-long science camp in California. "You have to go, Chloe. It's an incredible opportunity," Olivia insisted, seeing the spark of excitement in her daughter's eyes. "But it's so far," Chloe muttered, glancing anxiously at Ethan. She was worried about leaving the balance they had all achieved. Ethan sat down with her, not as a father telling her what to do, but as a man who understood the fear of distance. "I know it feels far," Ethan said gently, "but the stability isn't about the distance between our houses anymore. It's about the distance between our hearts. And that we fixed. We built this home," Olivia added, "and it's not going anywhere. We will fly out to see you. We'll FaceTime every night. And Theo will miss you so much he'll probably learn to say your name before mine." Seeing their unity and their unwavering support, Chloe agreed to go. A new family tradition. The month Chloe was gone was quiet. Ethan and Olivia found themselves spending their evenings together. No school runs, no homework checks, just each other. It was a chance to reconnect as a couple without the immediate demands of parenthood. They had deep conversations about their ambitions, their future, and the life they wanted for Theo. One night, while standing on their porch, watching a gentle summer rain, Ethan reached out and took Olivia's hand. "Do you remember the night you walked out, and I told you I didn't want to see you again?" Ethan asked, the memory still painful. "I remember," Olivia whispered. "I've spent so long trying to make up for that, to prove I was stable," he said. But seeing Chloe leave for California, happy and secure, made me realize something. I don't have to keep fixing the past. We did it. We created a family that is strong enough for distance, strong enough for change. Olivia turned to him, her expression soft. "We have the best kind of stability, Ethan. The one that allows us to change and grow without breaking." When Chloe returned from California, tanned, exhausted, and bubbling with new scientific knowledge, she wasn't just bringing back stories. She brought back a renewed sense of confidence and independence, proof that their anchor held, no matter how far she sailed. That year, for the holidays, Ethan started a new family tradition. A hand-painted ornament for the tree, each one representing a milestone of presence, not profit. Chloe's successful science camp, Theo's first word, Chloe, and the year they chose Boston as their forever home. Their story was no longer about a mistake that defined them, but a second chance that empowered them. A clear, beautiful testament to the enduring strength of love that chooses to stay. Tuyet voi. Chúng ta hãy tiếp tục câu chuyện về Ethan, Olivia, Chloe và Theo. Tập trung vào sự trưởng thành của Chloe và tương lai nghề nghiệp của Ethan và Olivia. Khẳng định sự lựa chọn của họ. Chapter 9. The Unbreakable Bond. By the time Chloe was 16, the Boston brownstone was the undeniable center of the Sawyer family universe. She was thriving, a science whiz with a sharp, dry wit, now looking at colleges and setting her sights on an engineering program. Theo, a whirlwind of 6 years old, was a miniature version of his father in his organized energy, but with his mother's easy laughter. The family's rhythm was solid, tested, and true. Ethan continued to excel as the executive chairman, his influence growing precisely because he led with balanced priorities. Olivia had built a highly successful career as a marketing consultant, working from her home office, her professional success a testament to the independence she had fought to maintain. The college application. The stress of college applications brought an unexpected moment of reflection. One evening, Ethan found Chloe sitting on the floor of her room, surrounded by pamphlets for distant universities. "You're looking at schools on the West Coast, Chloe," Ethan noted, sitting down next to her. "I know," she mumbled. "Is that okay? It's really far." Ethan remembered his own paralyzing fear when Olivia first moved to Boston. He smiled, understanding her silent question. "It's more than okay. It's what your mom and I want for you. The world is huge, and you should go explore it. You won't disappear, right?" she asked quietly, the old ingrained fear surfacing even after years of stability. Ethan gently took her hand, his heart swelling with pride and a deep ache of memory. "Sweetheart, I chose to lead my entire career from Boston just so I could be here for your science projects. I missed your first 3 years, and there is no power on earth that could make me miss another minute of your life. Go to California," he urged. "Go to Mars if that's where the best engineering program is. We will always be here. We will visit. We will call. We are your anchor." The ultimate choice. Ethan's commitment wasn't just to his daughter, it was to his entire ethos. During this time, the board of his New York firm offered him the ultimate prize, the role of global CEO, requiring a permanent relocation back to Manhattan and demanding his legendary 80-hour work weeks. He didn't need to consult Olivia. He knew the answer, but he brought it up to share the moment of finality. "The offer came through today," he told her that night. "The corner office, the whole package." Olivia looked up from her book, her gaze calm and steady. "Congratulations. It's exactly what you used to chase, and exactly what I no longer want," Ethan finished for her. He walked over to her, taking her hand. "The man who wanted that job died the night you left. The man standing here knows his real job is putting Theo to bed and making sure Chloe gets to her early morning robotics club." He too officially declined the offer, solidifying his role as the accessible, grounded leader he had become. He chose the Boston brownstone over the Manhattan skyscraper one last definitive time. The family picture, the following year, on a bright September morning, the whole family stood on the front steps of their brownstone. Chloe, tall and beaming, was home briefly before leaving for college. Theo was excitedly trying to organize their luggage. Ethan and Olivia stood side by side, their hands linked, as they said their goodbyes to Chloe. There was no drama, only love. "Don't worry about us, Chloe," Olivia assured her daughter. "We're solid. Go find some new frogs to study," Ethan added, hugging her tight. Driving away, Chloe looked back one last time. She saw her parents standing together, an unbreakable unit, their figures framed by the familiar, comforting geometry of the home they had built. She realized the lesson wasn't about the tragedy they had survived, but the deliberate, persistent love they had chosen. Ethan and Olivia had done more than rebuild a marriage. They had redefined success. Their true legacy was not in the fortunes they managed or the projects they completed, but in the stable, loving home they provided, proving that the greatest return on investment is always found in presence. Chưa đâu à? Câu chuyện của gia đình Ethan và Olivia vẫn còn những chương mới để kể. Nếu bạn muốn, tôi sẽ viết một phần epilogue cuối cùng, nhìn về tương lai, khi Chloe đã trưởng thành và gia đình họ bước vào một giai đoạn mới yên bình và trọn vẹn. Epilogue. The unfolding years. The decision to choose the Boston brownstone over the Manhattan skyscraper was the final, defining act of Ethan's transformation. It wasn't a sacrifice. It was a realization of what truly constituted wealth. The quiet fullness. The years flew by, carrying the family forward. Chloe excelled in college, often calling home to share new scientific discoveries, always ending the call with, "I miss Theo, and I miss your pancakes, Dad." Theo grew into a thoughtful, creative teenager, finding a passion for music that filled the house with melodic chaos. Ethan and Olivia entered a quieter, deeply satisfying phase of their lives. With both children growing more independent, they rediscovered the joy of being Ethan and Olivia. They traveled, not on corporate jets, but on simple trips exploring New England, visiting small coastal towns and historic sites. They often found themselves standing on a quiet pier or a cobblestone street, holding hands, simply grateful for the second chance they had fought for. One evening, while walking through their neighborhood after dinner, Olivia turned to Ethan. "Remember when we first moved back in, and we were afraid of the silence?" she asked. "I remember," Ethan replied, squeezing her hand. "I was afraid of everything that wasn't a number." "Now," Olivia said, smiling up at him, "the silence just sounds like peace." Their rebuilt marriage was a testament not to the power of love at first sight, but to the power of intentional love, the kind that shows up day after day and chooses commitment over comfort. The final lesson years later, the family gathered back in the Boston brownstone for the holidays. Chloe, a successful engineer now, and Theo, home from his first year of college, filled the house with light and noise. As the evening wound down, the family was gathered by the fireplace. Chloe watched her parents, Ethan, relaxed and laughing as he helped Theo troubleshoot a guitar chord, and Olivia, leaning back, watching her family with an expression of complete contentment. "It's funny," Chloe said softly to her mother. "For years, I thought our family was a miracle because we didn't break. But now I realize it's a miracle because you and Dad chose to build something so much stronger than what you had before." Olivia smiled, understanding the profound depth of her daughter's observation. "We built it on a very simple foundation, sweetheart. Your father learned that the biggest risk isn't failure, it's absence. And I learned that the strongest love is the one that proves itself not once, but continuously." Ethan looked over at them, catching Olivia's eye. He didn't need words or grand gestures. Their lives, rooted in the familiar chaos